Hello, everyone. Welcome to Soulprism Podcast, where we share bite-sized nuggets of wisdom for your body, mind, and soul to serve you, the emerging soulpreneur. My name is Tammy Mack, and I am so excited to introduce you to Adrienne. She is a 1-3 ego manifester on the cross of tension. She's passionate and experienced enthusiast in human design. With over 8 years of dedicated study, she has become an expert in this transformational system. Known for her dynamic and impactful communication style, Adrienne captivates audiences with her engaging presentations and interactive workshops. Based in Detroit, she empowers individuals to embrace their authentic nature through thoughtful experimentation. As the founder of Manifestors Global Retreats, Adrienne creates restful experiences for manifestor women, nurturing their unique strengths. Her retreats gather manifestors from all over the world, providing them with space to recharge and thrive. Adrienne is also the co-founder of Myspireo, a platform that connects individuals with top-tier human design professionals. Welcome, Adrienne.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Oh, I am too. So, if you don't know, me and Adrienne were both invited to speak at the International Human Design Conference in Denver this year, just in the last few weeks. And it was absolutely amazing to finally meet Adrienne. I've heard about her, I've seen her around, but I didn't actually, it's not for me because I have the gate 44. It's not till I can smell you that I can really get your true essence. And when she came and gave me the biggest hug, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a soul sister.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I felt that same way. It's so good to be with you in person, in aura, and to be able to feel your energy, to share very special moments at the conference during some of the workshops that were presented by, people I've admired for years. So to be in that space with you was, unforgettable and transformative. I'm so excited.
Actually, let's talk about the conference just for a little bit because it was my first conference. I'm not sure if it was your first conference, but for me, I've only been in the human design community since about 2020. But it's just amazing the way that I was able to download the information, quickly integrate the information, the system as a projector. We love systems, and fully embody my human design. And to be invited and recognized as an expert in my field was truly, this is how projector invitations truly, truly work. But I'm curious, how was it for you?
Okay. So I'm a manifester, and I this was not my first human design conference. I've actually been to the High Desert Human Design Conference, and I'm learning that there are more and more conferences popping up, and that's one of the things I'm concerned with my new project, Myspireo, is that there's a lot of things happening we don't all know about. But to be invited as a manifester, first of all, I was the first manifester ever to be invited to speak at this conference. This conference has been happening for 4 years. Never once has there been a manifester speaker. I believe this year, by being the first manifester invited to speak, it felt very special to me. I don't have any projected channels. And it's really interesting because my business partner and daughter is a projector, and I watch and feel energetically her experience of getting an invitation and it being the right invitation and showing up for that, and what happens energetically for her. And I don't always get that. I was just hella surprised because I'm like, they even know I exist, because in a lot of ways in manifestor style, I'm not always as visible as I think that and I'm not going to say it's easy for projectors, but it's much more appropriate for projectors to be so visible, because we have to be able to see you and know you to recognize you. And I guess the invitation to speak at this conference and to be in the presence of people I've admired for so long, to find out, you know, like one of my earliest teachers, Evelyn Levinson, she wasn't directly a teacher, but she's got great content out there. We are like birthday twins. Like to be able to be in the presence of those people and have these experiences that were so personal, like that changed the game for me. So being invited was a surprise. And I felt warmly welcomed, and that was the best.
That was the one beautiful thing that I truly felt coming to the conference. Um, we all, whether you were a speaker or whether you were a participant or whether you were just sitting in the audience, this was a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to be seen, to be heard, to be held, to be nurtured, to be loved by a community that is designed to fully see you and fully embrace you. And that's not something that I'm really used to be quite honest, because working in mental health and addictions at the hospital, definitely have to wear some masks, right? Like definitely have to put on a mask to wear a certain authority. I can't be all gooey, dewy, lovey as much as I would like to. That's just not the role that I play in my work. And so to be able to fully, let your freak flag fly and to be honored for that and loved for that was a game changer, like absolutely game changing for me, and is something that I am ready to participate and to hold on to that vibration even more in the future.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. And for me as a manifester, like, so there's certain aspects of being a manifester that are so, it's very different from being a projector. And I think that this is part of the reason why I am very much so interested in the interaction between manifestors and projectors. That was at the other conference. One of the talks that my daughter and I, Zora, gave was about the manifestor and the projector in relationship, particularly in business, but just in life in general, because there is a different role that you play in society that I do not get to play. And by accepting that, it has made me like, so for example, at the conference, you might have noticed I disappeared sometimes. Like that's, the manifesto is just going to do that. Like we appear, we disappear. And it, the cool thing about being, say, in a environment where everyone understands design, no one's really super concerned about if I left, or if they are, they kind of can accept a very surface level answer. It's just the manifestor moving around. Like, where did Adrienne go? Who knows? No one knows. And usually it wasn't even necessarily, it wasn't like I had to get away or anything. It's just like I got involved in a conversation over here on the side and I was lost into time. Like I don't even operate in time necessarily all the time. I'm usually where I'm supposed to be on time, but other than that, like I'm just roaming around. So that was, it felt very comfortable. And I learned that from the first human design conference I went to, and that was a few years back, that I am amongst people who understand the mechanics and the design. So that means that if I show up as myself, then I don't have to put the masks on. And it is a lot easier to be around people when you don't have to have a mask on, which means, and I've learned this a few times, like we had a manifestor women's retreat, 20 women on a mountain, all manifestors. And I would notice like we'd be gathered around, this maybe 4 or 5 of us having a conversation, and someone peels away. And there was like none of that concern about where did that person go? Did someone say something wrong? None of that. So the mask being dropped are a way for you to conserve energy, right? So as a manifestor, as a projector, we conserve energy when we are in the, right environments and playing our role properly, right? So when I think about projectors, a lot of times I see them observing before they participate, because they got to figure out like the lay of the land. Here I come, a manifestor, like, hey, everybody, I do something, I make some kind of chaos, and then I leave. And it's, that's just kind of not what I do even thoughtfully, but by taking the mask off, I get to watch myself do these things.
I've experienced that as well. I've facilitated a couple of retreats as well, co-facilitating, really supporting the owner, and as you said, like so my natural shores, or sorry, my natural environment is shores. I'm a 6'2" splenic projector. And as you say, I learn best through observation. I really take in the energy and I see, my motivations need. So I'm always seeing what is needed, what is, and being on the outer edge and really looking in and only coming in, like I call it the Mary Poppins. Like I'm Mary Poppins in, I'm Mary Poppins out with a spoonful of sugar. And then I go back and I love being on the edge. I love, being in my own little world. And then so it's really interesting how manifestors and projectors really conserve their energy. We become very energetically efficient, only using our energy wisely when we are, whether it's with our motivation or whether it is, through our work, but really, really being effective with our energy. You are a 1-3 manifestor and you only have one channel. I am a 6'2" with only one channel as well. So we have a lot of openness. And so really, once again, like staying in our own lane, being in our energy so that we're not, influenced or conditioned so much by our outer experiences. Now, you are a 1-3 manifestor with one channel. And so traditional human design, it is the money line, if I'm correct, the money channel. But in quantum human design, which I absolutely love the language for, is the channel of sustainable resources, which is so beautiful because it opens us up to more than just money.
100%. Like, I think that to reduce that channel to money is a misnomer. And I think that it's really interesting because having studied traditional human design for a really long time, it didn't take me a very long time to understand that the channel isn't precisely about money. And I even think that Ra mentions at some point in time, he's like, it's actually kind of the end of money. It's the channel that's concerned with the end of money. And it's like, oh, wait, that's an interesting concept. But when I hear that quantum human design, I really feel that deeply, right? The channel of sustainable resources, because you've got these kind of the two endpoints. One is like, the ruler, the king, the queen. This is the person who has defined a territory. And on the other end, you've got the hand of the king, the 21, which is who's counting the coins, who makes sure that we have enough. And so the 45 says, I want everybody to eat. And the 21 says, we have enough to feed everyone, but we've got to, they've got to get, they're having hot dogs. They're having hot dogs. And it's like, oh, okay, well, what do we got to do to get them steak? And because, the queen or the king really does want to make sure that everyone has enough, but it's quite much more than about making sure, like doling it out. It's about making sure that the people are empowered, right? Because this is from the ego to the throat, that they're empowered to have for themselves. Because a strong kingdom or a strong queendom is peopled by people who have enough. They have to have their own enough, not my enough, my bounty, because that's very seven-centered and old school, right? Because the hierarchy says, I am up here and you're down there. The other thing about the ego center and that particular channel is that it, in its most high vibration, right, sustainable resources, recognizes the importance of every level of resource in the kingdom. As my daughter says, and I know you love Zora, she's like, who I really am grateful for? The guy at Taco Bell who's making my taco. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, the guy at Taco Bell is making the taco. I don't have to chop vegetables. I don't have to do, I don't have to make a tortilla. I don't have to grow wheat and corn, like the things that you don't have to do, because this person who some people out in the world will call low-skilled labor, they're bringing it all together to hand it to you. They are precious in the kingdom. So yeah, everybody's precious.
Yeah, everybody is precious. It's interesting because my roommate is a projector, very conditioned
Mhm.
projector, and he is the right angle cross of rulership, where I am the left angle cross of the alpha of democracy. And
Mhm.
so he has the gate 45 and I have the gate 21. He calls himself the benevolent dictator, and I call myself the voice of the collective. Right. And so it's really, really interesting when we look at your analogy of the Taco Bell. Somebody had to cut up all those different foods, the vegetables, the meats. They had to provide everything that is needed for the person to put it all together and to
Yeah.
share, right? And so, I am because we all are, right? Like, and so really moving from the queen or the king of a queen, but I'm not your highness,
Yeah.
right? Like we would start introducing synergy. And I'd love for you to really explain the dynamic between hierarchy and synarchy.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite subject matters. Actually, as a matter of fact, one of the other talks we gave at the other conference was nine-centered business. Business beyond 2027. Like what's coming. So one of the things, going back first off to the channel, the 4521. When you have the 4521 in one person, I'm not going to say it's problematic, but it it does create a dilemma inside of a person, and you have a choice to make when you're carrying the full channel. It's easy for people, if you think about someone who has the 45 and doesn't have the 21, it's conditioning, and there's a conditioning factor that makes them fall into the shadow of the ego. You understand? So when you talk about the benevolent dictator, that's just the shadow of the ego center. When the ego center is vibrating properly, it says, I am a contributor to the tribe, no matter how lowly or highly my position may be. We are all here making it all work. Okay. So when you have this entire channel inside of one person, I had to come to that dilemma. There was a point in time where I was leaning very heavily towards rulership and the shadow of the 21, which is extreme control. I need to control this. And what happens is when you get from hierarchy to synarchy, one of the verse breaks is control. You never had control anyway. We're hurtling through space. Nobody's driving this thing, okay? Nobody's driving. And so being able to release control, which is, it's really interesting. You have the 21. My daughter also has the 21. And what I have found is when I am able to connect with people who so-called compromise the channel, it's healthy. Those are people that I can trust to give control to. And who better than a projector with the 21 to be able to hand off? I'm telling you, it is the weirdest thing, because I think there was an assumption that if you have the whole channel, they call it, sometimes if someone doesn't have it, they call it a dominance channel. Or if you have it and they have half of it, it's a compromise. But I really think the compromise actually begins um, to buffer the control that the person with the whole line has. It actually is a teaching tool to be in contact with someone who puts you in compromise. Yeah, I see it in my personal relationships too. We can talk about that later.
Saying teaching, and gate 45 is the gate of distribution. It is the gate of teaching. It is a teaching gate. Which I find really fascinating that you keep sharing that, where the way that I teach the gate 21, it's a little provocative, my gate 39 and my moon, but I teach it as the submissive and the dominatrix, or the dom, right? Like, and who really has the control. And we think it's the dom, right? We're conditioned to think it's the dom, but it's the submissive that actually has the control, because at any, all they have to say is their safe word and it's done. Right. It's not the dom that actually has. And so the other way I say it's like our inside is like the outside is a reflection of our inside environment. right?
Yeah.
And so it's really like you need to take in control or accountability for what's actually happening here, not what's happening out here. And so I love the connection between the 45 teaches us and then 21 gets to decide, was this what I want? No, okay,
Yeah.
next.
And the thing about it is, it's like when I think about the 45 and the 21, it's the relationship of the king and the grand vizier, or the hand of the king, the person who actually wields the power. They have the power, and it's because the king is smart enough to understand that you you can't actually be a good ruler and also be the muscle. The muscle has to be somewhere else. And so being able to delegate is the high level of the 21. Being able to um, bestow power or control to people who are you can trust with the power and the control. And that to me is one of the, like, that's the elevation of this so-called money line, or even sustainable resources, because the resources get sustainable when you put them in hands that know how to create efficiency, that hands that know how to take. I was like, oh yeah, I'm the king, we're going to feed everybody hot dogs. You hand it to the right person, they're like, no, I can totally make this into, healthy salads and steaks. You just watch. Because they have the capability, they have the ability to manipulate the material to make it better and more. If you are the ruler and the person executing, trust me, you're going to fail. You can't do both. Like, if imagine the king is out, not just in the fields growing the wheat, but counting the wheat and making sure it goes where, it's too many jobs. So you have to be able to delegate. And I think the other part in my design is I don't have any gates inside of my G center except for the 7.
Oh, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, I know.
My human design, the human design portal,
Mm-hmm.
actually, is it called? Yeah, it's human design portal. We have an interesting dynamic where I'm the gate 31 and she's the gate 7. Now, who's the real leader, right? We think it's the gate 31 because, I'm the face, I'm the voice. And yet I wouldn't be who I was if I wasn't supported by the actual leader, who is the gate 7, who supports leadership, like this,
Yeah.
like the CEO, or what, the vice president, right? Like the president's just like the big balloon head, but it's actually the work of the gate 7 that is bringing the resources, is bringing the support for that leader.
Yeah, like the chief of staff. We talk about, like, you got the president and the chief of staff. Without the chief of staff, the president wouldn't know anything, wouldn't get briefed on things, wouldn't know which direction to go in. And for us in our combination, so Zora and I, she has a completely open G center. It's hilarious. So we huddle around our little gate 7 and blow on it, because that's all we have direction wise. It's our fun place. So having an open G center, right, completely open, and one that's mostly undefined except for one gate, means we play around with roles. So when you talked about who's the real boss, well, clearly it's not me. Even though it looks like it, everyone is they like, you're the mother, you have the 4521, you're a manifester, surely you're the head, the boss. I'm like, no, I'm the door opener. I open doors. I make it possible. And then guess who's walking through? If you don't know who the real boss is, the one who I opened the door for, that's the boss. And by playing with that role, we're playing with the fact that I'm older and she's younger, right? We're breaking the paradigms that create hierarchy. Hierarchy says you're older, you're higher up, unless you're old and useless, and then we put you at the bottom. It's all these little formulaic ways of placing people in society. And the reality is, I remember the guy at Taco Bell, the Taco Bell maker, the taco maker. He is as important, right? The person who picked the food out of the field, the person that raised the cow, the person that grew the wheat and the corn. All of those people enabled me to have the taco in my hand. So recognizing that no role is much more important or less important. Um, you know, all you have to do is do some, mental experiments where you disappear a kind of people. I was talking earlier about a friend of the family who was a janitor in a high school for 45 years. And I remember talking to him about this because my father was an engineer. And so my father had definitely a hierarchical concept of what's better work versus what's not good work. And I was talking to this friend of the family, Johnny Underwood, shout out. And he was like, there's something so satisfying at night when I have buffed all the floors in the school and they're gleaming. And I know that the next day the kids are going to come in, it's going to get all dusty and stuff, but I have satisfaction around maintaining this building and making sure it's, a place for these children to come and learn. There was pride there. And so for me, when I think about the end of hierarchy and synarchy, it's about people doing what they love that makes our society better, and that we appreciate them like we'd appreciate a surgeon, like we'd appreciate the person who, we call more skilled, or they have special skill sets. All of these are necessary. And so I think that when we get from hierarchy to synarchy, it's about the appreciation of every contribution to our society, even the people who make problems in society, because there's entire industries built around someone else's struggles. I used to work in one. I worked in tech. Literally, if Microsoft wasn't crappy, I wouldn't have had a job. I would not have, and I earned great money. I had a great time. I learned a lot. So that's just the least struggle, right? That's just tech. But when we have people who, like, I know you deal with people with addiction, and when you have people who have failing health, there are people who show up to those jobs with love in their hearts for what they do. So not only are they important because they showed up for the job, but even the person who has the problem. Society is built on us connecting.
Oh, that's so beautiful, which is going to bring us actually, I didn't think we were going to have this conversation, but it sounds like we're really bringing in the conversation of the nine-centered soulpreneur, or the nine-centered business. And we're going to talk about my channel next, because my channel actually comes from the will center, the ego center, down to the spleen, which is part of the ego circuitry and the business circuitry. So that channel is the gate of surrender. And generally it is the gate of being productive. And as a projector, I burnt out many, many times because I was so damn good at being productive. Like, I am a really good generator for a short period of time. But that the gate is actually about being, it's about surrendering, it's about, being in integrity with your energy and sharing it to only the right people, and and the people that are in integrity with your energy. And so in doing so, it's really understanding not everybody's my people, and it is a tribal influence, but not everybody is my people. And really starting to understand that when you get to be, when you're not, when you're being, the level of doing that you're doing is because it's from the level of being, not I have to do so that I can be. It's I am, therefore I do. And so when we look at our elders, when we look at, our masters, we look at those that have that wisdom to share. It's an honor to serve them, even though for many years I was quite bitter about being an ass wiper, right? But the truth is that getting to honor these elders that have built the world that we have, and that we're so conditioned to throw away when you are no longer productive or contributing, is something that we really need to redefine, because you have value just because you exist. That is it. That is it. And so when we go from, the throat to the heart to the spleen to the root, and now we're seeing business really shifting. The way that I teach business is now from the 50-27 of nurturing, of self-care, of serving within your values, of filling your cup up first and serving from the saucer. Right.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the shift of that coming into play instead of, peace and war and, always fighting because we don't feel like there's enough.
Yeah. No, I love that so much. And I think that, one other thematic that I'd like to introduce is the empowerment of individuals to move according to their spirit, because that's what's coming for 2027, right? We know that the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix involves some very particular gates, and it's, intimacy, spirit, and movement. And, when I think about the ways in which people get locked into professions, or they get locked into, it used to be, a long time ago, if your father was a cobbler, made shoes, you were a cobbler and you made shoes. And this was how things were passed along. And then, we got to a point where there was a lot more mobility in the class and what you could do. And we've kind of actually gotten into a point where people get trapped. And part of the trap of modern society is, especially in, we're in the United States, so our context is here. So I'm not necessarily even speaking worldwide, because other people have different contexts they're dealing with. But here, much of the context is debt and this kind of unrequited hunger that is pushed through the media, that you should want more.
Over consumption.
Yeah, consumption. God, gotta have more. You gotta have this car, you gotta have these clothes, you gotta have this look, you gotta have this. And what ends up happening is the hunger then traps us into certain ways of acquiring what we need to live, right? I have this job because I need to have this kind of lifestyle, because the media, or just society in general, has told me this is the lifestyle I should have. And I find that there are a lot of people who are now starting to break. They're breaking the bond with the hunger. Yeah, because if you don't break that bond, you become the thing that has it's really funny in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. There's a world where there's small mouths and big bellies. And what you get when you have a small mouth and a big belly is you don't ever get satisfied. Now think of that in terms of human design, where 80% of the people on the planet, their signature is satisfaction. So this mental conditioning has removed the ability for them to have satisfaction, which means we live steeped in a world that can't be in its signature. So, like, as a manifester, I'm starting to realize my role in this is to bring the right kind of impact, and to give the platform and help with projectors to make sure that they can do the work they need to do, so the generators can be satisfied. Like, really.
I love that. I read a book called American Gods, and I don't know if you've read that or not. Amazing book, because it talks about the gods, and when the Europeans came into the United States, they brought their gods with them.
Yeah.
And as we started creating new gods, we stopped giving energy to the old gods. And when the old gods didn't have any more energy, they didn't get to play a big role, but we gave our energy. We created new gods through radio, through TV, through social media, through money, and we create our influences. And so it is our sovereign rights to get out of that matrix and create our own influences in life and be the influence that feels within your value system, that feels right within your soul. We are seeing the emergence of the soulpreneur that is not creating business out of the ego and out of the mind, but truly serving from the heart, truly wanting to make the world a better place, truly understanding what sustainability really means versus overconsumption and the need to feed, right? And so I'm a gate 41, that's my conscious sun, and my life is less is more, right? Because truly the less that I have, the more I'm grateful for. The less that I have, the less responsibility that I have. The less that I have, the more that I can receive. And you and I had a conversation about access versus ownership, right? And the power of that, like truly the power of not having to own all the time, to understand that there are people in the gate 41 that are going to own, and there's other people that get to share in that ownership, that get to play a part in that, they get to support that, and yet, you know, they don't have to own it.
100%. And I think that that's part of the kind of the doctrine or the worship, like you said, the gods, the god of hunger, the consumption god, which, you know, consumption was the name of a disease. I think they called tuberculosis consumption at one point in time. It basically, people would wither away to nothing. And when I think about the idea that ownership has been, you know, promoted very deeply, that you need to own these things. And why do you need to own these things? You need to own it because you have to pass it on to the next generation. And we've got people who have accumulated not one generation's worth of wealth, not 5, not 10, but thousands of generations of wealth, like so far into the future that nobody knows if the future exists that far out. Like, really, I mean, the future exists out there, but do we even? And what I've likened it to is what happens when you dam up water. You know, it's really interesting because Las Vegas was hit by a hurricane. They got a hurricane, and they've been getting rain for the last couple of years. So California and the droughts in that area have actually all been corrected at this point. Their water table is back. Did you know that? So what's really interesting is that if we continue to have this weather pattern where all this water is falling, the dams will be overwhelmed at some point, right? The dams will overflow and continue on their path like they had been meant to. So something like Lake Mead, which had been, you know, at a 20-year low, which is almost back to full right now, which we in our lifetime, probably we hadn't really actually seen that. Because I think we're roughly the same age. Like, we haven't seen that. And if they keep getting water, it's going to overflow and run over. And what I guess I'm likening it to, if we freed the water, then the waters would flow unchecked, unstopped, all the way down to Mexico, because there's places in Mexico that will never get any of that water where the Columbia River normally goes. The same thing is with currency, with money. When you dam it up, there's people down there who don't get access to the money. And the money in our world acts as just a tool or intermediary of value, right? So in a lot of ways, money is thank you notes. Sometimes money is permission to work. And literally, by damming up resources, right? We talked about sustainable resources. By damming them up, we actually put them in danger. You know, part of the damming up of the Columbia River at Lake Mead meant that, I can't even imagine the numbers of how much water just evaporated in the desert when it could have just flowed down to Mexico and everybody could have water. You waste it, it'll rot. It doesn't actually do work anymore when it's
it becomes less valuable too, right?
Yeah,
it becomes less valuable. Yeah.
Worthless.
Yeah.
Worth less and less and less. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. Like, free the money, free the water, free the things, free it so that people can actually experience their satisfaction in this lifetime. For people who want to uh, consume and hunger for some future, I live now, I live here. And I would love to live in a world where the people were more satisfied. I would love that.
Let's talk about I love having conversations with you, Adrienne, because we can talk about all day. But I live in Canada, but I was in Detroit last week, and I was driving around Detroit, and you're from Detroit.
Yeah.
And we are seeing something absolutely amazing right now in Detroit. The big three automakers, the workers are going on strike. Now, what's really interesting is that the auto manufacturing world really sets the standards for what happens next, what trickles down next. And I read an article yesterday at work talking about what it was that they're demanding. And they're demanding 36% raise. Mwah. They're demanding a 4-hour work week. Mwah. They're demanding better job security, healthcare, and pension. Now, the auto industry is what revolutionized unions, right? It's what created unions. And I work in a union in healthcare as well.
Yeah.
And so they are creating a new era of what it is that we can ask for through sustainability, right? Because they're finding so many beautiful research on the 4-day work week, right? Instead of and shortening, I think I can't remember if it's 32 or 34 hours, but shortening full time from 40 hours down to 32 hours and still getting the same level of pay. Now, this is something that I created for myself when I left long-term care, working full-time 5 days a week, 40-hour weeks, to working 3 days a week in mental health, less taxing on my body. I work 3/12s and I have 4 days off, right? So I would love to hear your insights and if you're excited about this as much as I am.
So wait, it's almost like we set this whole conversation up. We were literally, Zora and I were just talking about a neighbor of ours. We're walking in our neighborhood. We live in I would say this is a blue collar neighborhood. A lot of those in Detroit. So we're walking around this neighborhood and we see a sign in a neighbor's window that says, UAW, we stand strong with you. And so here's Zora. She's like, how do we let that person know we love them? And I'm like, well, we can stop and knock. It's the neighbor. We are super excited about that because what they are really demanding and asking for is nothing short of justice. It is literally just, right? That when a company is profiting off of the labor of people, that those people share in the benefits created by that business. The thing about businesses, here's the folklore of businesses that, oh, I made this up by myself and, I took all the risk to start it. Sure you did. Except the SBA gave you loans, except for the government has, created concessions for you, except for we, the taxpayers, built these roads that the trucks that you have to use to carry your shit around, carry your things around, use these roads. Like, give me a break. We're in it together. Again, remember the guy at Taco Bell. So if the truck driver is important, the factory worker is important. Someone says, oh, well, they just screw the same widgets in over and over again. No, they've actually automated a lot of that stuff. Where they have people, those people should be paid a living wage, because part of satisfaction, right? I'm so concerned about our 80%, the people that we have to take care of on this planet, right? Sorry, the 70%, like 70% are generators, and they're the ones that build our world. So satisfaction for them is being able to live in a nice home, to be able to experience the good of life, and for going to work and being present at a place. These people, I know auto workers. sometimes they're working 712s, which I think is absolutely inhumane. I know I can't do it. We're non-sacral. We just can't do that. So when we're
For very
talking,
long
not for
anyway.
very long, but I do. I know a projector, and I just, I'm just looking at her like, wow. The fact is, all they are demanding is to be seen as humans deserving of a good life for providing a service. You know, they create a product that sells for anywhere from 30 to $100,000. You know what I mean? Like a car costs a lot of money. So we know that the profit is there. I looked up Mary Barra's salary. Mary Barra makes, I think, $24 million a year. Compared to the profit of General Motors, she's being paid pennies. But guess what? 24 million, I'm sure, is more than satisfactory for Mary Barra. But where does all the rest of that profit go? Oh, there's profit sharing. That's nice. These workers get $8,000, $10,000. That's lovely. But what about their um, their standard of living? There's people who are fighting against inflation, right? So inflation is going up 5% a year. When they ask for 36%, they're literally only asking that their pay is raised for the last 4 years, which they didn't get the pay raise for. They're not even asking, I don't think, for enough. But
I don't
that's
think
another
so.
conversation.
Well, so I work in healthcare, and one of the big reasons why I left long-term care, like it is hard work. It is
Yeah,
abusive work. I'm so
yeah,
but it is very abusive work. The last contract that we haven't had a contract in 2 years. The last contract that we had was a 3% rate, like 3% in 3 years, like 1% a year. Like that is that. And so like we are seeing systems fail, right? This is the healthcare system, the
yeah,
education system, the banking system. We're seeing systems fail. And this is why. So I look at long-term cycles. It's my nerdy passion.
yeah,
I love long-term cycles. And the long-term cycle that we're moving into right now is holistic care, really preventative medicine, because we're seeing this crash. You have to take control and responsibility for your health and your well-being, because it's
yes,
not you can't place that outside of yourself anymore. And this is why human design is such a beautiful system to truly understand yourself,
yeah,
your energy, how to stay sustainable, and how to truly, for my languaging is to serve from the soul, right? To
yeah,
really find that satisfaction for the 70% of the population that like find work, find meaning, find purpose in their life that truly satisfies them, so they don't have to overconsume, so that they're not looking outside of themselves for happiness, right? It starts within. And human design is such a beautiful system that can support you in knowing yourself. Know thyself.
yeah.
Now you have a beautiful offering, and you're creating something amazing that I would love for you to share.
Okay, so what we are creating is a platform called Myspireo, and it is so that people can have an easy and safe way to find human design practitioners, people who can do the service for them. But I think the more important part of the platform is that we plan to create it in a cooperative manner, right? Versus it being something that is extractive. We want it to be something that is collectively about sharing, and that creates a way for the people who do the work to benefit off of, especially these additional offerings that we plan to have on the platform. So it's a new way of doing things. We don't want to do it the old way. We don't want to create that where did the profit go feeling for people who actually show up to do the work, who serve from the soul. We have our saying is connect, serve, and thrive. We all deserve to be able to connect to people, to serve from our souls, as you say. I love that language. But we also all deserve to thrive. when we talk about the UAW and what's happening there, it's about the idea that we all deserve to thrive. Whether or not we are contributing at some high level, it's about, we're here though. We made it. We're on the earthly plane. We should be able to thrive here. And so right now we do have for people who are human design professionals, I don't know how many of those listen to this podcast, but I'm going to make sure to actually share this with our community. So we have a Facebook community called the Human Design Professional Community. And what I'm sharing is a culmination of the research we did before starting to build Myspireo. We were in a cool local incubator for businesses, and it was for a startup. And the question was, what do people who serve with human design need? And what do the people who are looking for human design services need to see? And we were able to answer that, put this in a report. It's very easy. You sign up with your email address and you'll get pushed right to the report. No download necessary. You can read it anytime, just save it and you're able to read it. So yeah, we're super excited. We don't know all of how it's going to go in the future, partially because we are approaching this with shared control and democracy. So here we have the 4521 who is submitting herself, along with my partner, we're submitting ourselves to the people because we believe in people. We don't believe that AI or machines can replace us and that we can listen to people and build the right thing.
Oh, I love that so very much. Obviously from the 31 and the collective and the tribalism, and truly, like, I love the unity, the diversity within the unity. I love that it's for everybody. You don't have to be a certain human design professional or guide or what analyst or whatever, right? Like it's for everybody. And it sounds like, I love co-ops because we all vote, we all make those decisions together. It's not a hierarchy. So I appreciate you so very much, the work that you're doing, the heart that you're sharing, your daughter as well, who I absolutely love. She is gorgeous. Like it just shines from out, from within her. And I'm so excited to really work together on future projects because, you're just such a kindred soul. And thank you so very much for being on the Soulprism podcast.
Thank you so much, Tammy. It's been a pleasure.
So did you download your human design chart and wonder, what does this all mean? I get it. It can be super confusing when you first download your human design chart. That's why we created a short mini course called How to Read Your Human Design Chart. This is going to walk you through the basics of your human design chart, which is going to get you excited to learn even more about yourself through this beautiful system. So click the link below if you're interested in learning how to read a human design chart.